Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire review, my fair review. 8 years ago, Pillars of Eternity 2 came out, and I enjoyed vanilla even though it was a downgrade compared to Pillars 1. 8 years later, here we are again, doing a review for 2025. This review will include the Ultimate Edition of Deadfire, including all of its DLCs. Beast of Winter, Seeker Slayer Survivor, and the Forgotten Sanctum. Let's rate Pillars 2 properly, as it deserves.
And then I met an Aussian boy, he damn near drove me crazy.
We'll haul away and go.
Jimmy!
We'll haul away.
Before we start with the video, I got a new channel about my cats. It's not a gaming channel, but it's a relaxing channel with a lot of gaming music, so you can chill out while doing something else. So, if you have a daughter, mother, sister, even your mother-in-law, recommend them the channel. They also gonna like it, as well as if you have cats. It will be something like a cat TV as well. Your cats will have fun too. Thanks up front for subscribing on the new channel. Let's go to the video. Story. Again, you're in the role of a watcher, but this time you're in the middle of a war among the gods of Eora. The stakes are higher. You're not fighting for the world, but for the very essence and souls of everything living and dead that ever existed. Of course, writing took a small downgrade from Pillars 1, but it's still better than 99% of modern games today. They added romance and relations, cause hey, that's where the world was starting to move around 2017, but truth to be told, it's in a minimal doses in Pillars 2. Aside from that, you will speak way much more with gods of Eora compared to Pillars 1, and you will have bunch of factions to deal with along the way as well. To put it short, atmosphere is great, a real pirate-like atmosphere, cause Pillars 2 is a pirate CRPG after all. Writing is still supreme, but it is a small downgrade to Pillars 1, and you will have to play Pillars 1 in order to understand what is happening in Pillars 2. 8 out of 10 for the story. Game bugs and optimization. Hard section, hard topic, very small amount of bugs, a crash here and there from time to time because of the huge memory leaks. Engine was pushed to its limits for Pillars 2. It's a gorgeous game, but performance suffered a lot. Non-stop frame drops, you will need to restart the game on every hour or two because of the memory leaks. In comparison to Pillars 1, combat feels sluggish and slower because it's not as smooth as it used to be. It's not bad, it's just engine at its limits for the current year. Loading times are quite fast in return, if nothing else. 7 out of 10 for game bugs and optimization. Game time. It took me exactly 130 hours to finish the game on the hardest difficulty available, the so-called Pot of the Dam difficulty, with upscaling all encounters in the game. I did all bounties, all side quests, all DLCs, all optional areas, and mega bosses, and of course, the main quest. This is a huge CRPG, longer than Pillars 1 for sure. Replay value is huge as well. Game is often on sale, a bang for your buck, it's worth every penny. 10 out of 10 for the game time, money well spent. Game difficulty. Plethora of difficulties to pick from with great AI. This is one very hard game if you decide to play on Pot of the Dam difficulty. It requires experience from Pillars 1 and a full game knowledge in Pillars 2, as well as understanding of positioning and 1000 mini details to pay attention to during combat. Mega bosses in Pillars 2 are by far one of the hardest bosses in video gaming history, including all CRPGs to date, as far as single player games go. The best part? Everyone can play. Casuals will enjoy the game on easier difficulties, perfectionists will have a blast on hardest difficulty. Also, it's very important to say that the harder the difficulty is, the bigger the amount of enemies and the more different encounters you're gonna get throughout the entire game. DLCs will offer even bigger challenge than the main campaign and will put your skill and game knowledge to its limits. Perfectly balanced game from start to finish. This is probably one of the best balanced game in a video gaming history, to be honest. 10 out of 10 for the game difficulty. Maps and graphics. One of the most beautiful games ever created from isometric perspective. Deadfire Archipelago is just straight gorgeous. Main world map is done extremely well as mini-maps and the entire UI. I gotta say one thing though, I liked UI a bit more in Pillars 1 than in Pillars 2, but it's not a big difference, it's just a matter of preference I guess. For me, Pillars 1 had a slightly better quality in user interface, but then again, Pillars 2 doesn't go behind that much. Everything in this game is handcrafted and all areas in the game are unique as it gets, from classic dungeons, pyramids, islands, caves to the glorious capital of Deadfire, the city of Neketaka. Amount of detail is straight nuts for a CRPG. As for Pillars 1, I can say exactly the same about Pillars 2. The game aged like fine wine and it will look amazing even in 3000 years from now. Pure art at its best. Map variety is also huge, especially when we count all 3 DLCs on top of the main campaign and optional areas. Deadfire Archipelago is a world map that everyone should consider exploring incomplete. So 100% it's really worth it. 9 out of 10 for maps and graphics. Gameplay. This is where this game took a hit. Instead of 6 members in a team, now it's only 5 and you can feel limitations during gameplay because you will always lack someone during combat to add extra fun and variety. It's not a big hit, but you can feel it for sure if you play Pillars 1 prior to starting Pillars 2. Some combat mechanics were tweaked and changed to make the game a bit easier to beginners, and games suffered a bit in return. Aside from that, this is still one extremely fun and fluid game, especially during exploration and combat. Some people like the new main hub and traversing the world map with a ship, while a lot of people hated that mechanic, especially the ship combat. I don't mind ship combat because that's how the setting of Deadfire is, and I understand why Obsidian decided to go with it. They wanted to innovate and it backfired. It happens, what can you do? Again, the rest of the game is just way too good, so I really don't mind the tedious ship combat because those mini games feel like games from Commodore 64 in the late 80s. Pillars 2 is more about exploration and less about dungeon crawling. Dungeon crawling suffered a bit, but I realized on time and added dungeon crawling segments and parts with all of its DLCs. At least we get dungeon crawling by those DLCs now, yeah. It's still a fun game and I enjoyed it a lot. 8 out of 10 for the gameplay. Leveling and itemization. Multi-class is the main difference from Pillars 1 in Pillars 2, so now we got hundreds of options for different builds finally. Of course, single class option is still there from Pillars 1, but multi-classing upgraded this game to the next level. Higher tier spells are also available for you and for your enemies as well, but 90% of spells and abilities remained from Pillars 1. New upgraded skill tree and leveling options are also introduced in Deadfire, and it looks straight up amazing when you level up. Every level feels extremely important. Itemization in return took a downgrade because I have a feeling that Pillars 1 had much better and more useful items, as well as better and bigger amount of soulbound items. In other words, the game feels bigger than Pillars 1 and more complex, but in reality it's simpler to understand Pillars 2 and play Pillars 2 than it was to understand and play Pillars 1. 9 out of 10 for leveling and itemization. NPCs and enemies. Extremely memorable companions, NPCs and bosses in the game. Of course, some companions from Pillars 1 are back, like Adair, Alot and Pallegina. New companions are also great, especially GOTY. Now, Pillars 1 had a lot of dragons, while Pillars 2 opted in for a different approach, and now we get a plethora of different monstrosities, including the famous optional late-game mega bosses. Enemy variety is huge in Pillars 2, and I mean it. AI is supreme, they know how to target squishes and dodge your spells. There is not a single bad thing that I can say about NPCs, enemies, boss fights, and everything that's included in this game. Is just straight up supreme for a CRPG. 10 out of 10 for NPCs and enemies. Music and sound. This is one fully voice acted CRPG and voice acting is superb. Music from Pillars 1 is back, and new epic tunes are added for Pillars of Eternity 2 as well, included the phenomenal sea shanties. Sound effects are supreme. Your ears are in for a feast in Deadfire. 10 out of 10 for music and sound. Final verdict. We got 81 points in 9 sections, and that would be exactly 9 out of 10 for Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire in 2025, including all of its DLCs. Game is in a much better state than 8 years ago, and that's a fact. It's bigger, it offers more content with its huge DLCs, and it finally received some dungeon crawling parts compared to its vanilla state. Innovation made it worse than Pillars 1. Clunky performance, ship combat, rushed ending, and a lack of proper dungeon crawling killed the overall experience a bit, but it's far away from a bad game. To be more precise, this is easily one of the best pirate setting games ever created. A crpg worth playing, worth buying, pure quality with some minor problems, but then again, what game comes without problems? It is a brilliant game, but slightly worse than Pillars 1, and that's the final conclusion here. Worth playing, worth buying, worth every single penny, even in 2025, and I truly believe it's gonna get better and better and better as time goes on, because gaming is going downhill, and these old gems are just supreme to everything new that's coming out these days. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.